The Tao of Self-Confidence, Episode 751. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. Visit our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits. Well, hello friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I have an amazing lady on the show today. She's an actor, a TV host, a model, a jewelry designer, and a humanitarian, and I'm really excited to have her on and share her story with us today on self-confidence. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Angel Pai. Angel, how are you today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit more by yourself to the listeners.
Yes, thank you so much, Sheena, for having me. Very excited to be on the show. I think you guys are doing fantastic work. A little bit about myself. Essentially, my titles in the media, I'm all aspects of everything in front of the camera. So I'm an actor on TV, film. I do modeling, as well as I'm a jewelry designer and a TV host. So I host on PBS, NYC TV. In the past, I've hosted on MTV, Travel Channel, etc. And that all ties in to my work and mission as a humanitarian.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And Angel, what's your cultural background?
I'm from Taiwan originally. I was born in Taiwan and I came to the States, grew up here in New York City, and came here when I was about 6, 7 years old. I have lived in 7 countries, so I like to say I was made in Taiwan, raised in the States, and finessed around the world.
Thanks for sharing that. And what'd be your favorite self-confidence quote?
Ooh, a self-confidence quote. I don't know if I would say it's a self-confidence quote as opposed to what I always say, and it's more about empowerment. I say, inspire, empower, rise together. So that is something I try to live by every day in everything that I do.
Thanks for sharing that. And I think it's a great quote. I mean, confidence is tied to all that. I mean, without confidence, we won't take the action to inspire somebody out there or even ourselves, empower others and ourselves and help each other rise together. So I think it's great. And in your own words, how do you define self-confidence?
How do I define self-confidence? I believe self-confidence is something that takes time to develop. It is almost like like an awakening, and it comes from your acknowledgement and awareness of self-abilities. So I think so much of our society tells women to be humble, to not talk about our accomplishments, and especially in the Asian culture, right, to stay humble, to be, carry everything with humility. And I agree with all that, but unfortunately, there's no balance of kind of acknowledging the work that we have done, how far we've come, what we have actually accomplished. And we're not talking about necessarily huge accomplishments. And to be honest, quote, huge accomplishments are subjective, right? What is huge to someone could just be a blink of an eye to someone else. But I think self-confidence is this awareness, this self-awareness of what you're actually capable of, truly capable of. And it's not a measurement based on someone else, reflection of someone else or comparing with someone else, but rather a true inward self-awareness of what we're capable of and what we have actually already accomplished.
Thanks for sharing that great definition. And Angel, what was your life like before your discovery of self-confidence?
One of the things that I always remember and I truly appreciate, and I do take it with a grain of salt nowadays, I can chuckle about it, and I think a lot of our Asian sisters can relate to this. My mother always said to me, beauty fades, but your intelligence will only gain and will last forever. So since I was a little girl, anything anyone has ever said regarding my physical appearance, how we, to this day, we always say, oh, you're so pretty, you're so cute, you're beautiful, look at you, whatever it is that we compliment little girls on, it really shapes their reality, because then we're pretty much telling them how important that is, that external factor. So my mother, who was and is still one of the most beautiful women I know, physically and internally, she would always say, if someone ever complimented me since I was a little girl, she'd be like, she's all right. And then she would turn to me and say, work on your brain. work on your intelligence. So every time someone had tried to throw me in front of the camera, she would turn to me. She goes, nope, you get your degrees, work in your education, work on all these other aspects. So she would always deter me from focusing on the external validation from other people. So that led me to a kind of an interesting path where I almost dismissed it. If anyone has ever complimented me on my physical appearance growing up, and I really dug in head deep into my studies, I was that very typical overachiever Asian child with 3 college degrees, graduated college ahead of time. I was that kid, but I was so driven to prove to the world, I suppose, or prove to myself that I was capable and that I was just, I had to do all these things. So my self-confidence came from this awareness that, oh, I can do all these things. I know I can. I've done it. I helped my parents run their company since I was 9 years old. I was an 8-time gold medalist in Taekwondo since I was a kid. From 12 to 18, I was a fighter. And so there were all these elements of me that I worked so hard to achieve. So there's that deep self-confidence that's like, you know what? I know I can take care of myself. I know I can do these. I can accomplish all these things. But there was still something really lacking. And that's that true self-confidence where it's almost a surrender of, like, I already know this. I don't have to prove anything to anyone anymore. I don't even have to prove to myself because I already know this. So that came only in the last few years. That came quite recently, maybe in the last 5 years of my adult life, where I had to just take the time to surrender and say, I am enough. I'm more than enough, and I'm doing what exactly I'm supposed to be doing. And so once I stopped comparing myself to others or what I think I should be doing or what I should be accomplishing, I was actually able to look at how far I've come. I was able to take a step back and look at the journey almost from a third-person perspective. And that kind of gave me a level of deep, profound self-confidence. Like, okay, I'm me, and this is more than enough. And I trust that I'm capable of doing more than I can ever imagine. I think that's kind of my journey of the discovery of my true self-confidence.
Thanks for sharing that. And I think, as Asian kids, when we grow up, we're always just told to, like, hit the books, hit the books, hit the books. And anything outside of that is just like, you're crazy. What are you doing? Especially as Asian women, because it's like, we're not allowed to do anything else but to, like, go to school, get married, and have kids. And, and then with the compliment thing, I think everyone feels like that. I know if someone gave me a compliment before, I'd be like, I would just dismiss it too. I would be like, I don't know what you're talking about, but we really should not dismiss that, because if someone's giving us a compliment, we should receive it. We should learn to receive it and say thank you. And I have, like, my friends' kids, when I tell them that, I always tell them to say your thank you so that they can learn to accept, compliments, learn the act of receiving something good. And, those little actions or those little things really do make a big impact, because a lot of our traumas come from when we're kids. So.
Oh, they all do. Actually, they all do. All the traumas and the responses to traumas start usually before we're 7. So our brain, I have a background in kind of neuropsychology, neuroscience, and our brain is like a sponge. Okay, so our consciousness is formed at the moment we basically can remember anything. Up until we're about 5 to 7, we absorb everything, and everything's magnified tenfold and affects us for the rest of our lives. And we don't really think about that because as an adult, we've already figured out how to adapt and survive, and these are survival mechanisms. But it all ties back to our first traumas as children. And the word trauma is interesting because it's not necessarily, huge trauma. I mean, trauma, people think of like, oh, I had a pretty quiet, loving childhood. It's like, yeah. And there's some people, my childhood was actually extremely intense and traumatizing. But I know that when I share my stories with people, people are just floored by what had happened. But the thing is, the trauma could be anything. You could have been a little girl that asked a little boy out in kindergarten and he rejected you in public, and all of a sudden, or maybe not even in public, it could have been in private. And that alone is a trauma that little girl will hold on to and respond, and will literally affect her in so many ways that we can't even pinpoint until, true awareness, when we can do that kind of self-work and look back and go, oh my gosh, was it from that one little event? Like, that's what it made me feel. And I'm so glad you brought up saying receive, because that's been my journey, to be okay to receive. I've always been this giver, give, and I'm not giving. I think I'm not doing something right. And I'm not a good person if I just receive, right? So if someone gives me a compliment, I remember you kind of feel like you have to dismiss it at first and be like, oh, and then throw them a compliment back because you can't just receive it. You have to give something back. But what if it's just saying, thank you for that. Thank you so much. And that you receiving is like a gift you just gave someone else because you gave them the opportunity to give. And that's a gift.
Thanks for sharing that. And I totally agree. I mean, I know for me, like, my childhood trauma was failing kindergarten. And so, imagine at 5 years old, you've already like had your first failure. And, if we don't do the work, like that will hurt us. Well, yeah, it did hurt me, but I'm glad you're able to bring that up about, traumas and the age that, it happens. And, nobody really talks about this stuff. And the more we talk about it and bring awareness, the more people can start realizing, like, working deep and realizing, like, oh, this is why this is happening. Yes, and be able to share it with other people so that they don't feel like they're alone. And, to the woman who's listening to your episode, she may be in her own journey to self-confidence. What would be that one tip you would give to her?
Absolutely. And I think it's so crucial to share. And as a matter of fact, I believe it's the foundation of our human society. So like our history is passed through truly storytelling back to the caveman era, right? Paintings, wall paintings, they were drawn to share knowledge, warnings, right? If they were like animals that could endanger the clan, the group, the people, they would draw it, and then the stories have been unfolding. So we know, oh, there are tigers in this region. There's all these stories that get passed down to teach the next generation, to teach the future. And without us sharing, we're so stuck in our own heads. We're so alone. We think, that's all our reality, right? Your reality is really just what's in your head. We create this reality. And it's so fascinating when we can take a step out of that and be like, oh my gosh, was I just living in this reality the whole time? And really, that's actually what happened? It's because we placed a story upon it. And the importance of sharing is actually exactly why I went into media. Like I said, I actually have a background in medicine. I grew up, since I was 5, I wanted to be a doctor. So I had spent all my lunch money that I saved up to buy medical books since I was a little girl. And I wanted to be a doctor. And I really kind of, I went to Stuyvesant, which is a math and science high school. So I got to actually, take classes like medical diagnosis, hospital internships, all that already when I was in high school. So I had this amazing accelerated opportunity. But at one point, it actually hit me. I had like my big aha moment, but it hit me that the power of storytelling, the power of media, the power of sharing, that's what's going to connect and heal the world, right? To watch a film, a TV, some kind of video, podcast, because podcasts are quite new. All these are this platform of information sharing. That's where the power is at. And that's where we can all unite and, quote, rise together so that we, I say ignite your inner fire to help light another's path. And that's about sharing our own journey, our own discoveries, so that it may help enlighten someone else.
Thanks for sharing that great tip. And if our listeners wanted to get to know a little bit more about you and what you do and check out some of your work, is there any links or social media profiles we can connect with?
Yes, absolutely. My website is angelpai.com, but it's angel-pai.com. My Instagram is angelcpai. I'm also on Facebook at Angel Pai. I have a public page, but I think most of my following, we connect on Instagram, Angel C. Pai, and absolutely on my website. You can, check in for my updates, things I'm working on, and things like that. So thank you for asking.
Not a problem. And to our listeners, if you want to connect with Angel, you can also head on over to the taoofselfconfidence.com and search for Angel's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else that we talked about. And I really just want to thank Angel today for taking the time to share her story and tips with us on self-confidence. So thank you so much, Angel.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Sheena. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. It was really great having you on the show. And to our listeners, be on the lookout for another new episode of another amazing woman's journey to self-confidence, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to another amazing episode of the Tao of Self-Confidence. Get your free self-talk tape for building self-confidence by visiting our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits.